Hello and welcome to the first video lecture for the class Ch1&2pt1 Small Group and Organizational Communication. So let me tell you before we get into the material what to expect from these videos. This particular video will cover the first couple chapters in the text, but it's going to be broken up into different parts. So throughout the course of this term, none of the video lectures that I put together will be more than 15 minutes, and that's for a couple reasons. First of all, people really don't pay attention to videos much beyond, say, 10 minutes, and that's also the limit for uploading a video to YouTube. That's where I upload my videos. You don't need to go there. There will be a link right from the course web. But make sure to read the chapters and watch these videos each week. It doesn't matter in what sequence you do that. These video lectures, as you'd expect, are just kind of summations of the chapter, but I'll point out and focus on the things that are most important, but also most important for this class. So let's get into it. The text starts out by just talking about small groups in everyday life and makes a quick distinction between what's called a task or a non-task based group. And most of the groups in our lives are informal. They're not task based. But many of the groups that we are a part of at work and at school are task-based, and the book uses an example of a committee. That's a small group, and as you'll see in this class, the term project, the group project, you are going to be on a fictional committee. So, the groups are there to make decisions, satisfy needs, or to simply socialize. And we spend a lot of our lives in them, okay? In as much as we're individuals, we like to be with other people. We are, human beings are group oriented, so we spend a lot of time there. It's natural. Doesn't necessarily mean that our participation's effective. But ultimately, hopefully, if things are going the right way, individuals will make important contributions to groups. Again, it's just a naturally human thing to want to be in groups. It gives us a sense of belonging. It allows us to identify with others. It's in some groups, it's a way to show affection to others. It also can be used to manipulate and control. And we're willing to give up our time and energy to commit, cooperate, and collaborate, right? We're all going to have our individual motivations and interests, and sometimes being in groups can certainly make that, reinforce that, but groups also ask us to compensate and to give up to the group as well. So compromise, I guess, would be the best word for that. Big fact of groups is this next point that's underlined and will be a big part of this class. Groups are better at decision making and problem solving. The project that you're going to be working on is you are going to be solving a problem. You can look at the syllabus now if you'd like, but you don't need to look at that project right away, although I will recommend that you start to talk to each other about how to handle this. But you're going to be solving a problem and making a big decision. Again, participation is not always effective, and people have mixed feelings about groups. Students often don't like groups, just like other people don't like groups, and mainly that's because they feel like their grades can be affected by others. Just know that's a valid concern, but I've been doing this for a long time, and I'll make sure that that doesn't happen. You're not going to be punished because of someone else, but hopefully you will enjoy this project that I'm talking about. Communication skills are key, and groups ultimately help us make contributions to an organization or society at large. So you are going to be, in this fictional scenario, you're going to be making a big decision or solving a problem, making a big decision for a big organization. This fulfills our need to give and contribute. We don't need to read this whole paragraph here, but the text says our focus is the communicative dynamics of group members, what people say and do in groups. While we'll draw upon findings from other disciplines, we'll concentrate on the process of communication among members and how group members can influence this process. I would just point out, this is on page 7 in the text, that make a point to see the phrase what people say and do in groups. What people say is clearly a form of verbal communication. Doing is acting. But again, action is communication too, right? So we're talking about nonverbals as well. But I just wanted to point that out because we don't want to get too hung up on what is strictly defined as communication and verbal communication, because if you took the intro course, and I'm pretty sure all of you did, in fact, I know all of you did, a lot of communication is not verbal. What is a small group discussion? It's persons who are interacting with one another in such a manner that each person influences and influenced by each other person in the group. Interaction, mutual influence. This is called interdependence. Hopefully behaviors will be coordinated. And there it is, interdependent purpose. All members succeed or fail together in the pursuit of the group's goal. Perceptual awareness simply means that the group is small enough in terms of numbers that everyone knows and is aware of the others. This is something that came up in the intro course. Remember that the definitions differed slightly between groups and teams. I don't think we really need to hold on to that distinction. Probably what we're going to be focusing on more in this class are what the literature, the research literature, calls teams. These groups are highly functioning with a strong identity, highly structured, have explicit rules, and clearly defined member responsibilities. Members share leadership, and the central feature of group interaction is communication. So like I said, though, we're not going to get too hung up on the terms teams and groups. We're going to probably use the term groups more, actually. What are characteristics of groups? I've seen that 3 to 11 people is defined as a small group. Other scholars and experts believe the number goes up to 15, 14 to 15. That's pretty much the highest end, though. Doesn't really go beyond that. So we can just say comfortably that a small group is 3 people, has to be 3. 2 is not a group. And it goes up to about 15. And we have a sense of belonging in these groups. And we cooperate even if there's conflict and disagreement, and there most certainly will be conflict and disagreement. That is just part of any group, and you want that. As you'll see later in the term, conflict can turn conflict that's handled properly can really benefit the group and lead to better decisions. And you want to have disagreement too. You don't want everybody to agree on everything. That's not good, and that leads to problems. So obviously you want to manage conflict and disagreement well, but you just realize that that's part of it. And you want that. You want diverse perspectives in groups. And satisfaction is an important part of the experience. If people don't feel satisfied about what they're doing in groups, they won't continue with it. Groups can take place in person, face-to-face, and virtual, and everything in between. And of course, we're going to be mostly interacting virtually in this class. Let me see what I want to. I don't really need to point out much on this slide. Obviously, we fall into the educational realm. Our classroom, whether it's face-to-face or virtual, is a small group, although some classes, like my intro class, was technically not a small group because it was about 30 people. And we can move on from this slide. There are prescriptive aspects to this topic and to this text, where the author offers recommendations for behavior. Never a bad thing to act ethically. Okay, groups make really important decisions, so obviously, groups are going to have goals and objectives that they're going to try to meet, but it's never a bad idea to act ethically. Social loafers are the people who don't contribute as much as the other people in the group would like. But there's more than one perspective on that. Some people don't like to use that term. They like to use the term participant observers for people who observe more and maybe don't contribute quite as much to the task, but still do have something of value. It's all about collaboration, working together. You're all going to be different in your contributions, and that's the beauty of it. When things are working at their prime level, you have what's called synergy. So the author lays out 5 key values for your work in groups: integrity, responsibility, equality, honesty and openness, and respect. Pretty basic stuff here. Equality means, obviously, we're all equal as people, but there can be some differentiation in terms of the roles that you play in groups. So everybody's not going to be a clone doing the exact same thing. So that's a little bit of a tricky term. And members should be willing to speak. They should contribute their fair share. Diversity should be embraced. Honesty, integrity, again, respect, and thoroughness and diligence. And so that's going to conclude this first part of first video lecture that's going to cover chapters 1 and 2. And when you are ready, you can move on to the second video.